I know that we have people from all over today, so good morning to some of you, good afternoon to others, and good evening to those of you as well who have joined us late in the evening. Nevertheless, I'd like to welcome all of you and commend you also at the same time for being interested in learning about the market profile. It is probably the most powerful analytical tool on the market today. And as you will realize within a few weeks, you will have gained some incredible knowledge and certainly a significant edge in the market. Let me go ahead and begin. Before we start, as usual, I need to read to you the disclaimer. This lesson is designed and intended strictly for educational purposes only. It does not recommend, advocate, or urge the buying, selling, or holding of any financial instruments. The presenter does not assume any responsibility whatsoever for the actions of any person viewing or reading the contents of this lesson. The presenter may or may not hold positions in the financial instruments discussed. Trading and investing involve high levels of risk. Future results can be dramatically different from the opinions expressed in this course. Past performance does not guarantee future performance. This presentation is provided for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute any type of investment advice. Strategic trading does not guarantee the accuracy of information or warrant any representations made in this presentation and shall not be held liable for any inaccurate or incomplete information or for any improper or incorrect use of the information contained in this lesson. All right, let's now start and begin our discussion. We really have quite a journey to navigate and travel together. In our first lesson today, we will be tackling 5 key areas. Of course, I'll begin with an introduction to acquaint you with some of the things that we'll be doing and talk a little bit about some of the administrative details for the course. And then we'll take a look together at some common market profile misconceptions to get those out of the way. And then we'll focus the balance of our discussion on 3 very key concepts that really form the foundation for understanding the market profile. And basically, we will talk about the normal distribution, we will talk about the laws of supply and demand, and we will also talk a little bit about auction markets. Now, once again, I really would like to welcome you to the course, and I'm always delighted to have new students, and I have quite an eclectic group in this class. It comes to us from many corners of the earth. Trading is a unique endeavor in many ways, and I always commend those who have recognized that to become successful at this endeavor, you definitely have to educate yourself and continually improve your skills. This is going to be a course very different from anything else that you've experienced in the past. First of all, I can tell you with confidence that I know no one else teaches the same types of things that I teach. And as a matter of fact, this is both on a individual level as well as even on the institutional level. Even professional traders nowadays, very few of them will get exposed and will have an opportunity to learn some of the things that I will share with you. And the reason is a lot of the large institutional firms now don't really invest a great deal in teaching some of the traders because they're worried once they learn, they will leave them. Now, I know you will eventually leave me, and I do always wish you the very best of success. And nothing delights me ever than more than knowing that my students have excelled, and I get all kinds of nice letters from them and emails in the future with that are quite gratifying. The course is going to involve certainly quite a bit of work on your part. and I want to encourage you to do the work. Learning to trade is not an easy endeavor. It does take quite a bit of effort. If it were easy, anybody could do it. Now, since you're going to have access to some very powerful concepts and some very unique techniques that we will discuss together, I really want you to focus on these things. And I want you to be patient, because I know that you will immediately and quickly recognize the power of some of the things that we will talk about, but that doesn't mean that you should rush into the market and try to implement it and use it right away. Please, please, please be patient. Regardless of how great the tool or the technique sounds, wait until you have a complete grasp of the full picture before you begin to test it. And you will see that in my approach to teaching trading, it's a consecutive sequence of events, or a learning sequence that one has to go through to master what they do before they expose themselves to undue risk in the market. The idea really is you always want to preserve your capital. You don't want to be taking undue risks with your capital. And education is by far the best way for you to do that. The more you will learn, the better you will get, and the more you increase the probability of what you will earn. So please be patient and don't rush and try to do things prematurely. Now, let me talk a little bit about our course and the course dynamics. As you are probably aware, we are going to spend quite a bit of time together over the next 8 weeks. We are going to have 2 lessons each week. Each lesson will be archived for you, so you will have an opportunity to go back and review the lesson as frequently and as often as you want, and I actually encourage you to do that. Now, for the lab sessions and for the coaching, even though we already have a small group of about 10, I will break up the group into even smaller portions, because I really would like to get to know you, and I want to work closely with everyone in the room today. So to do that, I usually will break up our group into at least about 3 sections, and I will do it also to try to match levels of expertise. I know that not everyone in the room has the same level of experience and expertise when it comes to trading, and I keep that in mind, and I will try to match others with you in the lab and in the coaching that are of sort of a similar background. If you miss one of the classes, do not be alarmed. Just listen to it in your archive. It will always be made available to you within 1 day, at the very most 2 days, and then you will have access to it, and you will have access to it for the full year. The lab sessions, though, I do definitely encourage you to attend those, and the coaching. And in those sessions, I often try to hold them while the market is open, and we will look at different markets. And I know that this might create an inconvenience in terms of the time for you because of where you're at. I do take this into account, and sometimes we just have to sort of work together to balance our sleep hours together. But we have to address some of what we do when the markets are live and the markets are open. Now, I will also tell you at the very beginning, I want you to invest in a 3-ring binder, and I will begin to send you all types of materials, and you will have different exercises and different tasks. The binder will be very helpful for you to organize the materials for the course. Have 8 different tabs in the binder. You will need probably at least a 2.5-inch 3-ring binder. The more organized you are in the learning process, the more likely you are to benefit from the learning process. So please invest in that binder and start putting it together. You've already hopefully received some materials for the first week, and you will be certainly receiving quite a bit more in the future. In addition to that, I want you to include in that binder all of the exercises and all of the drills that I will ask you to do. Some of the exchange of information between us will happen online. Some of it will happen in the lab sessions, and sometimes I may in fact ask you to fax something to me to take a look at some of your work and some of the things that you've done. So I hope that you will have access to a fax machine or at least a scanner so that you can send me the information when I request it from you. Now, let's go ahead and begin to talk a little bit about some of these extremely powerful concepts that I hope you will eventually put to use to help you become an extremely successful trader. First and foremost, this is a great time of the year really to begin right at the beginning of the year and at the conclusion and the end of a prior year. And let's take a look to start out with at the big picture. And on the chart before you, you will see that we have a number of years, and I've picked the most recent years for you to take a look at, just to give you a perspective on what's been happening over the past 7 years. So what you see before you are really 7 candles. Each of these candles represents for us the trading for 1 full year. So basically, this last candle here is the candle for 2010, the year that just ended. When you look at this very basic and simple chart, you can really extract from it a lot of very valuable information. And I'm going to introduce you today to a unique concept that is sort of something that I have developed, and it has to do with what we're going to call power lines and power numbers when it comes to trading. Now, this chart gives us some very important power lines and some very important numbers to focus at. Take a look at what's been happening over the course of the past 2 years. And it does not take really a great deal of expertise to see that we've had 2 extremely bullish candles. So we've had 2 very strong bullish candles after a year that was an incredibly large red candle. So the question now that we have to begin to look at, and hopefully we'll be able to answer effectively, is what is likely to happen at this point, and where do we go from here? So this was 2010, this was 2009, and now we are right at the threshold of 2011, and we want to begin to take a look at what is going to happen in 2011. Already, over the course of the past 2 years, we have managed to overtake about 3/4 of the losses that were incurred in 2008. Now, what does that really tell us when we see that? Does it tell us that there is a propensity for us to continue to move forward? Or does it tell us that perhaps we've overreached and we should now be looking for the market to start to give back some of these gains? And the answer is we should never really try to predict. We want the market to tell us what it will do. Already we see that we've got these 2 very bullish candles, okay? And we know what the high for the year was. So we take a look at this year and we take a look at where this year begins to trade and how the numbers behave vis-a-vis these past 2 years. And let's in fact do just that. Okay, so the year just opened for us, and take a look at what happened. We actually opened higher than the prior year, and we've already gone up just a little bit in this short period, which is really we're in the first week of 2011, already 2 days, and we're already above. So some people may decide to jump the gun and say, wow, we're into another bullish year and so on. I really don't know, and anyone that does would be lying to you. Our objective will never be to try to guess the market or to try to predict what will happen. Our approach will always be focused on trying to understand what is happening and what is likely to happen, and to move in harmony with the market as it moves, regardless of what direction it decides to move in. So let's take a look at a key power line, okay, that I want you to focus on this chart. The key power line, and we're looking at the ES Mini futures. If you take a look at this number, 1275.25, why is this a power line? This was the low for 2006. Now, the key question is, are we going to be able to go beyond this low? Are we going to be able to break through it and head back up even further? And at which point, if we do that, then we have to begin thinking about, well, where's our next power line? And I will teach you how to come up with these power lines, how to use these power lines, and you will find them an incredibly useful technique in addition to the power of the profile. Already we saw during this week that when we started to approach this number, today, when I was looking at the market earlier, things were starting to move back a little bit. It looked like we weren't quite ready to pierce through it just yet. And it remains to be seen what will happen in the next few days and in the next few weeks. But the key thing is, at least now, at least you've recognized one of these power lines, where it is, and you're going to focus on what is the market going to do around this key power line. Now, I also want to drill down, now that we've looked at the full year, and have you look with me at some candlesticks on a monthly basis. And you see it is a very different picture from just looking at those few candles that each of them represented a year. And we notice that we can extract some other valuable information from the chart for that same period of time. Prices have been moving in a channel. Another very powerful concept that you need to be accustomed or acquainted with, the channels. These channels give us also some very important power lines. Now, you notice why they're called power lines. If you've ever looked overhead to some of the electrical power lines, as they begin to develop on the horizon, they start to look a lot like the power lines. And so we have these power lines coming in from the prior points on the monthly chart, and we also have the channel lines giving us some interesting lines that we have to keep our eye on. Now, a lot of this I'm just introducing to you because we happen to be at the beginning of the year. You will certainly learn how to develop and how to draw all of these lines yourself in this course. And once again, if we drill down even further, these are the same exact lines, it's the same exact channel from the month, and look how it looks when we look at it from a weekly perspective. Now take a look at it from a daily perspective. So it's the same picture, just displayed in a variety of different ways. And if anything, one of the first things now that I want you to gain an appreciation for is we need to be able to develop the ability to look at things from a large perspective and then hone in on them from a more defined and a more succinct and specific perspective. All right, now here's another channel. This is an additional channel that we have developed based on the daily chart for the same period for the ES Mini. And I know that not everyone may be trading the ES Mini. I will use it as a guide because it is an index, but I will also bring in examples from some stock charts. We will also be looking at Forex, and in the lab and coaching sessions, I will also offer you the opportunity to bring in some things that you are trading for us to look at together. All right. You have this in the lesson, so you don't necessarily need to write any of these numbers down, but these are some power numbers, and some power numbers really become power lines. So these power numbers are the power lines that you are going to find are going to be important to look at on a profile or on a chart. And so early on, I want you to begin to get into the habit of taking a look at the chart, take a look at where the chart is trading now, and see if any of these numbers that I have identified for you are around that area. And I want you to observe between now and our next class how the market has behaved around some of these key numbers or key power lines, just as an initial early exercise for you to begin to train your eye. Once again, I really want to emphasize to you the point that to really be able to trade effectively, it's just like a puzzle. There are many different pieces to the puzzle. It isn't about just one thing. And a skilled or a seasoned trader learns how to put the different pieces of the puzzle together and learns how to approach trading from a big picture by looking at the whole picture and not just a small piece or a specific piece of the puzzle. So already you've seen that we've begun our course by taking a look at an annual chart. And then we drilled down to a monthly chart. And then we looked at the weekly chart. And then we looked at the daily chart. Depending on the time frame that you're going to choose to trade, you may even want to look further down. But the first thing that I want to teach you is you should never jump into trading on any time frame without really understanding the big picture and looking at the other time frames and understanding the whole context and not just one specific area or one tiny fragment of what's going on in the market. Our focus in this course is not going to be on any one specific tool or any one specific technique. The way that I teach it is really to teach you how to understand the market, how to use all of the tools that are available to one in order to be able to understand the market. And the reason you don't want to sort of be a signal taker or someone that relies on any one specific method is because the market is continually changing. I have a colleague who is a trader. He's a trader who's been trading for a number of years, and he has been very successful, and he made quite a bit of money. He was making about $30,000 a month, and he decided that he wanted to become a prop trader for one of the main firms. So he started sending out his resume and records of his trading history and asking them for a position to whereby they would allow him to come in and trade with their money, and he would just keep a percentage of the profits. And he thought he was a great trader. Not very many people really responded to him, but finally he did get an appointment, and he went in to meet with the folks at this large organization of traders. And they started to ask him about his technique and what he did and so on. So he explained to him his method and told them that he wanted to access more capital and to make more money. So they told him, great, we'll get back to you. Well, he came back, and within a few days, the same exact technique that he used to use for trading the ES Mini, he was losing money right and left. It just would not work. It did not work anymore. And it was very simple because the market makers put in an algorithm that wiped him out instantly. And that's the problem of what I call the one-trick pony. Someone who approaches the market and thinks that they have a handle on trading simply by knowing just one technique or one style. The minute that's exposed, that's the end of that trader, that's the end of a career. Which brings me to another very important point that I want to share with you. Many of the things that I will introduce you to and that we will talk about in our course, very few other people know. And I am going to rely on you to keep it that way. And let me tell you that it is in your own best interest to do so. If some of these things that we use now to help us make money in the market become widely known, guess what's going to happen? They're going to shut them down. And it doesn't take long for them to recognize and to know that. So the information in this age is always valuable information. And in the wrong hands, it can hurt someone. In the right hands, it can help us to benefit and to prosper. So keep that in mind. And I know I can't control any of you, but if you decide to go out and let everyone know the things that we've been talking about and the techniques that we use, I guarantee you it won't be long before you will find that they're not going to work as well as they do now. Another key concept I always like to emphasize very early on in the first class is that it's not just about market understanding. This is an interesting equation that actually the gentleman who developed the market profile came up with, Stadelmeier. The equation basically says that success is a function of two very key variables. One, your market understanding, and two, the you. And never underestimate the you in the equation. Regardless of how well you understand the market, if the you variable does not have the discipline and does not sort of abide by the appropriate rules that should be used for effective and profitable trading, you are not going to arrive at success. So it is not just about market understanding, it is also about you. I can share with you a lot of the skills. I can share with you how you can develop those skills, but I can never make you adhere to them. The discipline has to come from you, and you have to be willing to put forth the effort and the discipline that's required to become effective at this. There's a great joke that was once shared with me by a friend who's a psychiatrist, and the joke is basically, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is quite simple: only one psychiatrist, but the light bulb has to really want to be changed. And similarly in trading, there's only so much a teacher can do when it comes to the you part. You have to have the desire, the intent, and the passion to become a great trader, and you will become a great trader. I will certainly do my best to arm you with a level of market understanding that very few in the market enjoy. So you can rest assured that you will learn a lot, and you will be able to understand the market in ways that you've never seen it before. But the you part is the part that a lot of traders struggle with, and I do want to give you a heads up very early on, so you can at least begin to focus on that and work with me. And when I guide you, as hard as things may be at times, you will need to invest the effort to work on the you part. Now, some general guidelines, since we have some beginners with us in the class, that I always like to share with them. Just as I call them guidelines, but they're really very crucial rules that are important to abide by. First and foremost, never practice or try to learn to trade with real money. The market is not a place for someone to play games. You will lose your money if you're trying to learn with real money. That's why we have simulators. That's why we have paper trading. There are many other far better ways to learn than to trade with real money. Never trade with money you cannot afford to lose. I have never known a trader that was profitable that was trading with what we call scared money or frightened money. Scared money is money that one cannot afford to lose. No one should ever trade with money they cannot afford to lose. Now, another key pillar in these guidelines: never trade without a plan. It amazes me. I work with students all the time, and I will be in a coaching session with a student, and I will say to them, tell me what you've been doing. And they grab a chart, they open it up and say, okay, I look at this, and then I take the trade. And I say, well, what makes you do that? Where's your plan? Do you have a plan? And you would be amazed how many people out there are actually trading without a plan. Now, everyone, before you leave this class, you will at least have one plan. And so make sure that that is a very important goal for you to develop over the course of this course. And I always like to review that plan for you before the course is over. But never trade without a plan. Never trade live with a plan that was not extensively paper traded or practiced first. It is not just about having a plan. You can have bad plans. So it's not just about putting together some sort of a plan and saying, okay, this is my plan. No. Once you have your plan put together, you also need to put the effort behind it to really study it carefully, improve it, and refine it to whereby it is a plan that will, in fact, generate profits for you. So just having a plan in itself is not an adequate goal. It needs to be a fully tested and practiced plan. Never trade in the market if you don't understand that market. Some students are trading Forex today. Tomorrow they decide I'm going to trade Apple, and the day after, well, it looks like the ES Mini was doing well, so I'm going to go and trade some futures. And oh wow, gold has been going up. Let me buy some gold. It really takes quite a bit of time to learn and understand a market. You can't be successful jumping from one market to the other. Even though the skills that we will learn are transferable and can be used in different markets, there's no doubt about that. But it simply takes time to have a grasp and a comprehension of what's going on in that specific market before you embark on trading it live. So if you're going to switch markets, at least take a little bit of time and do the homework involved, do the analysis that's required before you plunge in and start trading in that market. Never enter a live market until you are ready. So don't ever rush. People always are overly anxious to make money. If you actually just sort of backtrack a little bit, be patient, and learn, the money will come. And you will be amazed, because once it starts coming, it does really come in. But you have to be patient, because it doesn't happen instantly, and trading is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It really does involve effort, it does involve thinking, and it requires a very, what I would call, sort of well-grounded education. It's not just something that you do at random. Now, last but not least in my guidelines, if you're not making money, look at the above guidelines and identify which ones you've violated. And if you're unable to do that, to identify which one, I can certainly always identify it for you. And in my experience, it's never really about one violation. I can always spot at least at minimum 2 different violations. So take these guidelines to heart and realize that they come from a voice of experience, someone who's worked with many different students, and that they are common mistakes. They're not to be taken lightly. Some students actually have told me that they've taken this slide and posted it above their computer to remind them. If that will help you, by all means, do it. My objective here is to give you every tip and every piece of information that I can to help you with your trading and to help you achieve the goals that you desire. The process is really sort of a 3-pronged process that we will work with together. We're going to study concepts, ideas, techniques, strategies, and so on. We're also going to implement and use these concepts to analyze. And then we're actually going to practice the fruits of this analysis and then we're going to evaluate and take a look at the results. If you approach your trading this way, you will not go wrong. All right. This is sort of the last piece of our introduction segment. The tools that we need for this course. Since this is a market profile course, you will definitely need a market profile platform. The one that I will use throughout this course and the one that I will recommend for you is Market Delta. It is a very powerful platform. Now, you can choose another one, but I certainly have not found another platform that is capable of doing the things that we will do with the Market Delta platform. I know that the platform is not cheap and it is expensive, but just as any business, think of trading as a business, and you are definitely going to have to make an investment in this business to be profitable. If you embark on any business, there are some minimum things that you need to have to succeed. And I have really selected the minimum requirements for you. But I think you definitely will need to have them if you don't already have them in place. Naturally, if you get Market Delta, you are also going to have a live data feed. Now, the live data feed, there are many different ones that work with Market Delta. The one I personally use is DTN, IQ DTN. I have found it to be the most reliable. I have experimented with others, but certainly it is at your discretion. You can choose whatever you want, but definitely you will need to power Market Delta. Market Delta is a great platform because not only is it a market profile platform, but it also offers us the footprint charts, and it also offers us the standard candlestick charts. Plus, it also has an excellent number of indicators, which I will also share and show you. Now, as part of the course, I will give you a couple of indicators. They're intended for NinjaTrader, and you can use them with NinjaTrader, but our course is not really based around these indicators. Think of those as sort of just the icing on the cake, or a little bonus, if you will. But the core of what we will do and what we will cover is based on Market Delta platform and the market profile charts. I also recommend that you should have a minimum of 2 monitors. The more, the better. Remember, again, the point that I was making earlier, that you don't want to have tunnel vision when it comes to trading. You want to be able to see the big picture. And sometimes the big picture involves looking at more than one item. And therefore, if I have 2 screens, that is my minimum. If I have 4 screens, that is the ideal. If you're going to invest in 4 screens, I'm going to make a recommendation for you based on experience. First of all, make sure you buy a rack and screens that you can mount on your rack. It'll help you save space, and visually also it will make it more readily accessible for you. Now, I know that the monitors are not cheap with the rack and so on, but I'm also going to tell you, invest in the best quality monitors that you can. If you have a nice, crisp, clear image before you, it helps you. And as traders, we spend a lot of time looking at charts, analyzing, and so on. And the way I look at it, again, in the big picture as far as an investment, this is a small investment relative to the potential gains that you have when it comes to trading. You also definitely have to have a high-speed internet connection. You do not want to be working on a modem. The level and the amount of data requires a high-speed internet connection. Now, for the course, I also like you to have a color printer, and I already talked about the 3-ring binder. The color printer will be generating a lot of stuff for that binder. It is very important for you to have the ability to print out your charts and to print out different assignments and to take a look at them. This will help you log in your progress and your performance as we progress. Now, it could be an inkjet printer, it could be a laser printer. Certainly, I have a laser printer. I like laser printers because, again, the images are better, and if you get some water on it, it doesn't change the chart, but I leave it again to your discretion. These are the minimum recommended tools for the class, and I hope that by next week you will have them all in place if you don't already have them in place. All right. Now we are ready to move into the second part of our lesson, part B, and these are the market profile misconceptions. I like to address those very early on because invariably someone will ask these questions. I've been asked these questions many times over, and so I like to be preemptive and address the questions before they even arise. First of all, market profile does not eliminate the need for technical analysis. Market profile is an additional tool in the technical analysis world. So it does not eliminate the need for technical analysis. It is an added tool. It is an incredibly powerful tool. It is a great arrow to have in your quiver. And as you begin to learn and use this tool with me, you will gain an appreciation for it. You will wonder how you ever survived without it. Now, market profile, this is another misconception. Market profile requires memorization of rules. Okay, Dr. Kepler, give me some rules. If I memorize these rules, I am going to be a great trader. Market profile does not work that way. I do not have rules for you to memorize. But what I do have for you are things that you need to learn to be able to analyze the market and apply concepts. It's not about memorization as much as it is about understanding. And I know that this takes a little bit of time, and I know that it's not easy, but it really is not rocket science, and it can be done, and you will see I will try to simplify it as much as I can, and I will do my very best to make it as easy as possible for you to learn, to understand these key and powerful concepts. But it's not about memorizing any set of rules or patterns for that matter. Now, market profile gives us buy and sell signals. No, it does not. Market profile is not a buy-sell signal system. It is a way to look at the market, to analyze the market, and to understand the market, and to be able to make buy and sell decisions. But it will never give you a signal. Now, market profile can predict the market. Market profile is not a crystal ball. It does not predict the market. And actually, there is nothing I have found that will predict the market for anyone. The nature of the market is that it cannot be predictable. Because imagine, if it were, the richest person would have that crystal ball, and they would make money all the time, and that would be the end of the market. So markets, by definition, are not predictable, and nothing will predict them for you. So all of those vendors that try to sell you on the idea that they have found the Holy Grail and they can predict for you what will happen, unfortunately, once you begin to actually get into their tools, you will see that none of it really amounts to very much. All right, now we get into the foundation behind market profile. We are going to talk about one of the key concepts behind the logic of the profile and how it works. And it is the normal distribution process. First of all, a normal distribution is a process of looking at data, a population of data that seems random. But the idea is, instead of having just random data, we now want to analyze and make sense of this data. We want to create order. This is a very important and fundamental concept behind the market profile. There was once there still is, but it's an old theory called the random walk theory. And the idea of the random walk theory was really that the market was completely random. And we just got done talking about no one can predict it. Well, it is true no one can predict it, but the markets are not random. There is an order. There is a method to the madness. And this is the key. This is really what this course is about. How do we identify and understand this order in the market and be able to place trades in sync with what's happening in the market? If in fact there was no order in the market and the markets were completely chaotic, logic would tell us that no one could really ever make money in the market. But that's not true, because there are many entities, institutions, individuals, and so on that consistently make money in the market. What have they done? They've managed to understand the order of the market. All right, so how does this normal distribution create order for us where we had chaos before? Well, I just want to distill the concepts for you. So there are two key things in a normal distribution that we need to focus on. The first and foremost is the mean. So we have data, a bunch of different numbers, and the first thing we're going to look at to create this normal distribution that will help us create some sort of an order is the mean, and the mean is nothing more than the average. It is a number that we're going to calculate by adding up all the data that we have, and we are going to divide it by the total number of data that we have and come up with a mean. And then we're also going to calculate a standard deviation for this data. This is a slightly more complex formula. The good news is you don't have to calculate any of this. I just want you to simply understand what it takes to put together a normal distribution. The normal distribution is nothing more than a simple curve where I take my data, I group the data, and I'm looking to see where does the bulk of my data or most of my data fall. So by calculating the mean or the average, I come up with a center point, if you will, on the graph, and then all of the rest of the data that I have is going to fall either to the right side or to the left side of the mean. Okay, and based on that, I have three key concepts that I want to review with you, and some of you who've had probability and statistics courses may remember these key concepts. The center of the normal distribution is what we call the mean or the average. The mean of a normal distribution is the most frequently occurring value, and therefore it is also called the mode. And it is also the value that divides the distribution into two equal parts, or the median. So now you know that in a normal distribution, the mean, the mode, and the median are all one and the same. They all have the same value. Now we get to the empirical rule, which is a very important part of any normal distribution. And what the empirical rule tells us is that 68% of all data will fall within one standard deviation above or below the mean. 95% of all data will fall within 2 standard deviations above or below the mean. And 99% of the data will fall within 3 standard deviations above or below the mean. Basically, the normal distribution is helping me organize my data. And this was the concept that Stadelmeier used to sort of create the market profile. We have a lot of data, so let's take this data and apply the normal distribution to it and see what happens. Now, a normal distribution can have any mean and any standard deviation. The percentage of data falling within 1, 2, or 3 standard deviations from the mean is always the same for any normal distribution. So let's take a quick example here together, just to give you an idea. I have a bunch of sample data here for the IQ of a certain population. And to calculate the mean, basically we take the first value and then add all the values that we have, divide them by the total, and we will have the mean. The next thing that we take a look at is the standard deviation. We will find that when it comes to human IQ, the mean is at about 100, and the other scores vary from it based on the standard deviation. And here's something that is very, very interesting. If you notice, 68% of the IQs, or 68%, are between 85 and 115. And therefore, people who have incredibly high IQs represent a very small percentage of the population, and people who have very low IQs also represent a very small percentage. They are on the extremes, but the bulk of the population is right here. Now, this is the powerful idea that Stadelmeier used to develop the profile. And basically, he just decided that I will look at, instead of 68%, I'll look at 70% of the data, and I will use this data to identify for me what we will soon learn is the value area in the market. And the other values will form extremes in the market. So the concept of the normal distribution is the concept that Stadelmeier used to help organize the data in the profile format to help us understand and identify where value is in the market and where extremes exist. So, just to review, we have a mean, and that's the center. We also have the bulk of the data that occurs within one standard of the mean, or one standard deviation. And then we have another group of data that is within the second standard deviation, and that'll give us about 95% of our data, and then the balance, which are really very small, are on the extremes. That is the key concept behind the market profile, or one of the key concepts behind the profile. Now, I know I'm moving a little bit quickly, but you will have this material in your archive to review it at your leisure. I now want to get into another key and fundamental concept that every trader should have an awareness of, and it is the laws of supply and demand. First of all, the laws of supply and demand are a basic economic concept that helps us to understand how supply and demand in the market will influence market prices. So price in general in any market is a function of supply and demand. And when it comes to any financial product on the market, it is not any different. It is also governed by the rules of supply and demand. So what is the law of demand? It's really very simple conceptually. The law of demand tells us that the higher the price of an item, the fewer people will be willing to buy that item, or the fewer the number of people that will demand that item. In other words, if we try to explain and simplify that, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. So for instance, it would only make sense that if the price of gasoline went up to $10 or $20, certainly fewer and fewer people will be willing to use gasoline. The higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. And consequently, the demand curve has a downward slope, as you will see on this chart. That is typically what a demand curve looks like. And if you notice, the quantity demanded will increase when price is low. This is the point where price is low, and look at how demand will increase at points here. However, the demand will decrease at points where the price is very, very high. So now we have the law of demand down. So I want to share with you just this interesting cartoon that I liked because it demonstrates and illustrates the concept so well. Just why is gas so expensive? And the reason is, take a look at supply and take a look at demand. The reason it's so expensive is because there's a much greater demand for it than the supply that is available to us. And you will see, and I will explain again in great detail, how these forces interact and take place in the market continuously, in every market, in every time frame. The law of supply now tells us that the higher the price, the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied. And it makes sense. When something is very expensive and you can get a lot of money for it, well, guess what? More people will be willing to sell it. Sellers will eagerly supply more at a higher price, because if they sell at that higher price, what is going to happen? They will make more money. Price increases profits. When you sell at a higher price, you will make more money. And that's why when equities or futures or whatever item it is, the commodities, start to rise too high in prices, we start to find that traders will begin to short the item because now they know it's gotten too high. And this is why the supply curve is the exact opposite of a demand curve. It slopes upward. As you can see here with this curve, the slope is upward. What's really important and interesting here is the dynamic between these two curves. So the dynamic really involves both the supply and the demand. And the law of supply and demand actually helps us to predict and anticipate at what price level, where the price level will move to a point where the demand and the supply, in fact, are equal. And this is best illustrated by a graph. So if we have the supply curve here, the green line, and we have the demand as the red, the point of equilibrium is where these two curves meet. And you will often hear me speak when we look at the profile of points of balance. Points of balance are these equilibrium points on the profile, where in fact supply and demand meet. And this is, again, continually changing in the marketplace. Balance is never maintained. It's always changing. And we need to understand this dynamic so when the markets go into balance and out of balance, we understand what's happening and which forces are impacting it. All right, our last topic of discussion for today, we're going to run just a tad over, but let's tackle it, are the auction markets. Now, all electronic changes, or I should say almost all of them, I'm sure there's one or two out there that are still using something different, but for the most part, most electronic exchanges use the auction market process. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever been to an auction, but if you haven't been to one, I hope that at least you've watched one on television. And usually it involves someone announcing a price and trying to find people that will buy at that price. So the elements of the auction basically is a bid, an ask, and a spread. The bid is the amount that someone is willing to pay for an item. So they're obviously a buyer. They're bidding for the item. The ask is what the seller wants to get for the item. And the spread is the difference between those two. So if you subtract the bid and the ask, you get the spread. Well, what happens in an auction market when the bid and the ask are not equal? Well, one of the two parties has to compromise, and we see a negotiation take place. Either the bidder needs to increase his bid, or the seller needs to drop the ask. But a transaction in the market only takes place when the bid and the ask are equal. All right. it is very important to understand the dynamics of the auction market. They're not hard, they're simple, but they're crucial to the understanding of how the market moves. First of all, an auction market moves up to attract sellers and exhaust buying or buyers. So what is happening in the auction? The price keeps moving up, trying to find sellers, people that are willing to sell at that price. They're trying to offer as high a price as possible so that people would be willing to sell. Think of an antique that's unique, there really aren't that many copies of it, and someone owns it. Well, someone else wants it, but there's only 1 or 2 copies, so someone may offer him $10 million for it, and the seller, 10 is not quite enough yet. But if he offers 100 million, now he's got the attention of the seller, and the seller may in fact be interested. So as prices go up, which we just learned from our laws of supply and demand, they begin to attract sellers. Now, at the same time, the market moves down to attract buyers. Okay, if in fact no one is really interested in what I perceive to be a priceless antique, I want 10 million, nobody will give me 10 million, but I want to sell it. So maybe if I drop the price, I can tell you from living here in Southern California that there are many, many beautiful homes that a few years ago would have sold in the tens of millions of dollars are now selling around $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, even though they would have fetched a lot more, simply because they had to drop the prices down to attract buyers. There just aren't that many buyers that are willing to pay the prices that were paid for these homes 5, 6, or 10 years ago. All right, so the market auctions up until there are no more buyers. It then reverses and moves down until there are no more sellers. An interesting thing about auction dynamics, the market is always looking for the opposite of what it finds. So if it's found sellers, it is now going to drop back down and start looking for buyers. And vice versa. If it's found the buyers, it is going to drop, it's going to rise and start going up looking for sellers. That's the nature of an auction market. Now, some other key concepts that you should be aware of when it comes to auction markets, and they have to do with selling and buying behavior. Aggressive sellers will sell at the bid. They'll sell for anything they can get. And when they start selling at the bids start to drop. Excuse me. The bid starts to drop. And prices get lower and lower, and they drop even further. The exact opposite happens when it comes to buying. Aggressive buyers are buying at the ask. And the more aggressive they get, the higher the ask. And when aggressive buyers buy at the ask price will continue to rise and prices will continue to go up. And this is exactly what we see happening in the market day in and day out. So a very important rule to keep in mind, selling at the bid means that we have aggressive selling in the market. And buying at the ask identifies for us that we have aggressive buying in the market. These are some very important rules, and we will definitely be looking at them again in action when we look at the market together. So just to recap for you, in order for us to understand the market profile, we need to understand supply and demand, the laws of supply and demand in the market. We need to understand the normal distribution, and we need to understand the basics of the auction process and the dynamics of the auction process, which we have reviewed together in our first lesson.